I thought the best way to keep it in my life is to begin to pass it on to others. So I started encouraging my wife and people in my community, and pretty soon it became a thing. I introduced it to Mark. In fact, it reshaped his business in some ways. I like to say I took a little credit for, I didn't come up with his word brave, but that word, it began to really define where they are today. So a word can do a lot, it can simplify, and it can focus you.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Brave Today podcast. This show is going to encourage, challenge, maybe even provoke you to step outside of your comfort zone and take more action to better improve yourself and your health. I'm your host, Mark Avens, and in this crazy upside down world that keeps pushing a narrative for people to become soft, weak, sick, unhealthy, and more dependent than ever, the goal and number one intent of this show is to help you navigate through it so you can become not just braver today, but braver today than you were yesterday. And a couple of different shows that we do. We have brave guest interviews. This is more of a breakthrough, even though I'm going to be asking questions from Luch. For those of you that don't know him, in just a moment, we also do a show called the Brave Q&A, where I answer questions that you have. So if you have a question, shoot them over to me, however you found this, whether it be through YouTube or Spotify, or if you have by email or in some social media, just shoot me a question that you have, and maybe we'll answer that on the next show. Also have the flavor of the day. That's where I discuss latest news in health and fitness. Basically, I just get to pick apart latest diet trends, workouts, fads, pills, potions, things that I have seen over the last 3 decades of being in this industry, and they just seem to keep piling up over the years. So I break those apart. But today, actually, speaking of breaking things, we're breaking through in this episode, and I wanted to share and excited to have Luciano Del Monte come on, Papa Luch, aka known as Papa Luch, and I are actually in a coaching relationship, coaching mentor. I think our spouses say we're a bit of a bromance, if you will. We've been, I think, connected together. We've known each other for about 4 years now, I believe.
Yes.
And Luch is a certified coach. And also he's been a pastor, and he has an amazing family and is just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And one of the things that actually in our time together, as we meet on a weekly basis and have so for the last 3 years, more in a spiritual pursuit, just really helping me navigate through not just being braver, like physical and my business and all that, but also spiritual. One of the things he shared with me a couple of years ago, which I've actually incorporated into part of our Brave coaching program, is this word of the year. So I really wanted to have him come on because he's done a couple of trainings, probably last 2, I think either 2, if not 3 years, where he's done a training on the inside. And I say inside our inner circle clients that are in our coaching program, and they get the value of having him share and do a deep dive into what's the point of doing a word of the year? What's the value? Why should I do one? How do you do one? So I thought it'd be great to have him come on and share with you a little bit, and we just have an open conversation. It's been a game changer for me. The word of the year, I don't have the gear on now, but the word of the year for me last year turned into a rebrand, and it is completely now our brand, which is the Brave brand. We revamped, renamed our program, and it's called Brave Coaching Program. And that was my word of the year, which I'm taking into this next year, but I have a new one. But anyway, Papa Luch, welcome to the show. And I'd love to hear, first off, like how you came about this word of the year. Like, how'd you learn about it? Now I know, but I'd love the audience to know how you kind of started doing that, why, and the impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. I actually, there is a origin story, and I wish I could say I originated the idea of word of the year, but I guess it's been around a long time. I have no idea who pioneered it. But I remember I spent many years in my life in pastoral work. I worked in churches as a pretty much I've been an educator. My background is education. And then I went into Christian ministry, and I spent my life being a pastor coach. 2010, I made a transition and I started getting equipped to be a coach, more a lifestyle coach, a personal coach. I wouldn't say business coach, but everything I do spills over into business and family. But I like to call myself a personal coach, helping people with stuff on the inside. So I'm sitting down one morning, it was January 2nd or 3rd of 2013, with a client, and we were just beginning our coaching partnership, which actually we had agreed that we'd go 3 months, 4 times a month, and we had 12 sessions. But at the very first session, he showed up and he just assumed, he made a big assumption. As we were having breakfast, our breakfast had arrived, his had arrived, mine had arrived, and his name was Art. And Art said, Luch, what's your word for the year? He just assumed as a coach that that was a thing with me. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, explain that to me. What do you mean by a word of the year? Well, every year I choose a word, or I started choosing a word last year that helps me to focus my life because I've been doing New Year's resolutions. I've been doing goals for my business, and those are good, but they get a little too complicated, too many things to remember. But a word has a way to laser focus me. So I said, well, what is your word? He says, well, my word this year, 2013, is the word clean. I said, clean? What do you mean clean? He says, well, I plan to eat clean. And then he kind of looked at our breakfast. He says, not to be, not to shame you or anything, but my breakfast is clean. Yours isn't. Look at my breakfast. I have poached eggs, I have fruit, and I have avocado, and no bread, no this, no that. And you're just loaded potatoes, bacon. And not
You
that I was
owned it.
hungry. He said, so I'm going to eat clean. And then he kind of laughed off the joke there. He says, I'm going to drive a cleaner car. I'm going to strive for clean relationships with my wife and my young daughter. I only have one child. I'm going to have clean relationships with my parents. I'm going to have clean relationships in my business. Then it just the lights went off. Like the word clean wasn't just about what he was eating, but it was going to be a word that impacted the rest of this year. So I started thinking about words for myself. I went home and I started looking for a word, looking for a word. Where do I find a word? Because he didn't give me a tutorial or anything. He didn't give me any education. He just said, I said, where did you find your word? He says, well, I found it in a self-help book, he said, but I thought I'm a Bible guy. I need to go to the Bible. So I did find a word in the Bible for me. My first word, 2013, came from a scripture that says, he who believes in me, as the scripture said, out of his innermost being shall flow rivers of living water. And I don't know why I'd read that verse 1,000 times over the last 50 years, but the word flow stood out to me. I thought flow is a really good word because I get jammed up a lot. I get jammed up with people. I get jammed up with some bad habits. I get jammed up with my eating. I need some flow. I need to flow. So that became a word that kind of lit me up. And then I began to explore. So that was sort of the beginning. And since then, I've had a word for the year for the last 11 years, I guess, since 2013. So that's the start of it. And then I began to teach others. I thought the best way to keep it in my life is to begin to pass it on to others. So I started encouraging my wife and people in my community, and pretty soon it became a thing. And I was really delighted a few years ago when I introduced it to Mark. Mark took it on. In fact, it reshaped his business in some ways. I like to say I took a little credit for, I didn't come up with his word brave, but that word, if you've been following Mark, it began to really define where they are today. So a word can do a lot, it can simplify, and it can focus you.
Yeah, it's awesome. So before you were doing word of the year, you probably just set goals like the average person or resolutions. Hey, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to.
They usually lasted about a week or two.
Yeah.
And it was hard to manage them, hard to manage that many things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think honestly for me, and I've done this now 3 years, because remember I had breakthrough before brave. And then this year it's unite. That's my word for this year. I think that's really important that you shared that you're like going to try to find a word, right? And I think what happened for me this year is last 2 years, probably it was more me seeking out the word. But I would think this year I've matured in my word of the year and kind of just welcoming what's in front of me right now, what's present. Part of the podcast is to help you be braver today than you were yesterday. And certainly you're on the show because you're brave. And I think the word can be something that can help you and help anyone.
Yeah.
Having a word. And I think it's more, you're so right. Instead of it being like necessarily a goal, what I love about the word is it's almost like a mantra or part of you for this next year, like to come back to look forward to be present with. When I love that flow, that's something that is an action and it requires taking action. I love that. And what is your word for this year? I know you shared it with me, but I'd love to share. And
Yes, this year I got a beautiful word, and this word is working for me. I've been. What? By the way, I just want to say one thing about it's. This is true about anything. The thing with any idea you take on, you have to create momentum, then you have to capture momentum, then you've got to sustain momentum. Like we all know that we can get momentum created. Like you can jack people up, right? You can really get them fired up. But then it dissipates. Dust has a funny way of disappearing. So even with your community, Mark, with Brave, I've probably been noticing every couple of days, I'll throw something new in for the sake of the people who have taken on the project, because we created momentum, but you got to make your word work. You got to work your word, however you want to say it. And part of it includes your own personal commitment to the word, but also it includes some kind of alliance with somebody or find an ally. I don't want to use accountability partner. I don't like that word. I prefer, who do you want as an ally? Who do you want to be there with you and for you to make your word work for you? So my word is fountain. And the way my word came to me this year is I'm not a Taylor Swift fan at all, but I was reading an article in LinkedIn it was a business article. The article started out with a story about Travis. His name is Travis Welch, I think. He's Taylor Swift's boyfriend. He plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the story started out like this. It said, when he was 18 or 19 in college, his coach said to him, Travis, there's two kinds of people in this world. There's fountains and there's drains. Mm-hmm. You're a blankety blank drain on the team. And that really got his attention. And I didn't have to read much more of the article, except to see that he went on to become quite a philanthropist, not just a great football player, but also apparently a good human being in his world. Mm-hmm. I don't know what his religious background is, but the word fountain really hit me, that, yeah, fountain. And then I couldn't believe I went to the scriptures and I found it half a dozen times. And then I went again and I found it about 19 times. The synonym for fountain is spring, to be a fountain. So I got to practice it today when my son called me and said, your little grandson would like to play with you. I could have been a drain. I could have just sort of drained the life out of him and said, No's not available. He's tired. But I chose to be a fountain. I chose to be a fountain of love. I chose to be a fountain of happiness. I chose to be a fountain of availability. I chose to be a fountain of just be there for a little guy. And so the word has really helped me just to keep it's one of my best words. And we're only 16 days into the month. And I think in some ways, sometimes you get a word that's really good. Last year, my word was good too, was the word honor. Like I felt like I was starting to be really mean-spirited towards certain political leaders and ideologies, and I was dishonoring people. And based on who I feel God's called me to be and myself as a human being, I can have a difference of opinion with people, but that doesn't give me the right to dehumanize them. And so the word honor kept calling me back to a higher, I'm not better than anyone, but for me, to where I really needed to be. It closed the gap between who I was and who I wanted to be. And so I think this word fountain is more of a verb, and it makes me work. I want to be a fountain to my wife. I want to be a fountain of hope to her. I want to be a fountain of encouragement. I want to be a fountain of servanthood. What do you need from me now, baby? Like, what's important to you now? So fountain is really a nice word for me.
Yeah, I love it. And what I noticed too for people, because it's new for me to share it with others in the last really couple of years, when I started, and I kind of right away said, this is going to be something really good and valuable for people in our coaching program, trying to better themselves and their health. So sometimes their word might take on a little bit more of a personal health goal for themselves. And what I love is that it's not very hard for people to find a word. Usually I say find a word or discover a word. And it's something that's so simple, doesn't cost anything. It can be between you and you. You can share it with other people. And what about like for the word of the year? It's kind of transformed throughout the year. How does it for the past years for yourself and words? Now, obviously we're only 16 days in, but for people thinking about the word, is it something that you should can you stick to the word? Can you change the word? I just want to give some parameters for people maybe that are thinking about, oh, I think this word, but I don't know if this is going to be right. Just go with it, right? Is that kind of what you'd say?
I like to give people the month.
A month?
I don't like to get people thinking about it too much in December, even though that's when I start thinking about mine.
Yeah.
I don't want to go public with it till well into the month, because I want to see if it's sticky. And I try to encourage people, even in my own Wednesday morning men's group, I've given the guys 30 days. I said, guys, this isn't something you have to do, but I always like to best practice. I like to ask the guys in the group who do work the word, their word, and have them give an example of how it's working for them. So I mean, there's no rule on it, Mark. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule or a book that says you can't change your word. But I think pray about your word. I mean, if you're a follower of Jesus, I think you might want to ask the Lord for a word. Lord, I want to have a word that at the end of the day points me upward. It helps me look up, it helps me look in, and then it helps me look out. Like I want my word to do those things. I want it to help me look up, have a vertical look. See, my word fountain makes me look up because ultimately in my world, God is my fountain. He's the spring of living water. He's the one I go to quench my thirst. But out of that, Jesus calls us to be channels of blessing, not channels of cursing. So that's the outflow. And then I want it also to be a word that makes me look in. See, if I'm not being a fountain, I'm being a drain. I think it's actually good to have two words, your primary word and the opposite of your primary word. Like in your case,
Divided or
well,
united.
yes. There's other words you could use that would go with, with the opposite of unite, divided, divisive, fraction.
Separate.
Holy cow. Like
I know.
ugly words. And
They're
when you
all
think,
words that I think I've been feeling and seeing and hearing about the whole past year while I've been trying to be brave and working towards being braver today. This is now the podcast, but
well,
yeah, it's
for example, the opposite of brave, coward,
yeah,
timid. That's not a cowardly thing. Timid is just a personality, but coward in itself is an awful word, right? I don't want to be a coward. I want to be brave.
yeah, or weak.
Weak, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weak.
Do you remember when because you brought it up to me towards around early December, we started talking about it and I started to think about like at the time, we had we're here in Colorado and we've had some challenges and things happen over the last couple of months that make it not easy for our move. But here we are. And I remember going on the walk and a couple of things were making me resonate with fly or soar or climb. Like those words, climb. Remember, I said, we've been doing all this climbing and mountain and hiking and all this stuff. And it was funny because I was like, oh, maybe that's my word because it seems like it's everywhere. Then it's soar, fly. I think you said, we'll put that name, and I would love to share, and maybe you can share it better. But I know you told me, we'll put that word down on a piece of paper. I think I have it right here. Put that word down on, oh, yeah. So put that word down on a piece of paper and then write all kinds of synonyms, words that are very similar to that word. So
That's like a brain.
yeah, it was
That's
really good.
that's like mind mapping. That's a brain dump. That's just getting
Yeah.
it all out there.
It was really great. And when I was doing that, climb and fly and soar, I remember going on these walks in our neighborhood where we were renting before we moved in here. And I think I sent you a picture. I've sent it to my dad. I sent my wife's seen it. And there's two bald eagles that were on our walking path. And apparently they've been there for years. And I know bald eagles, they live for quite a long time. And I believe there's four of them, but every day we'd go out and walk the dog or go for a walk or a ruck. And they're these eagles, beautiful and huge. So, I mean, I've never seen just like giant birds just standing up on the pole. We saw where their nest was, which is a little ways away, but they were right there. It was like a little creek. Anyway, long story short, I was just thinking of soar and fly. And then I'm like, what does the eagle represent? Bald eagle. Well, united we stand, divided we fall. And I was thinking America and I was thinking like, holy cow, boom, it like hit me. And I was like, ah. And I was like, it's united. And then all of a sudden I heard that word. So anyway, long story short, I guess it was pretty long either way, but I would say the word kind of came to me, but I had to be observant and I had to be welcoming. Like the hard thing I think in today's day and age for a lot of us is we stand guard. And whether we guard our emotions, we guard our thoughts, we guard, and rightfully so, because people can rob them, right? People can steal them from you and rob you of your joy and distract you and all those things. But I think that's the challenge for people, maybe not just in the word, but getting through this next year. Each day I hope and pray that people become braver. I hope myself and I hope you become braver today than you were yesterday. And that really means something to me. But I think sometimes it helps. You have to almost let your guard down to some things so that you can actually welcome in new things. And for me, that's how that word came to me. So it was really, really powerful. And I have you to thank. It's something that I'm really excited about. It. What I look forward to most is seeing the word evolve through the year, seeing how it transforms. It actually goes into like almost like a living, breathing thing in my life for the course of the next whatever we have left, 50 weeks left or 49 and a half weeks left of the year.
Well, I think, we can't do it right now, but we could do something with you, like on the word unite. Like you and I haven't had a good conversation about it, but I'm fascinated that you chose that word in light of, between you and me and who's ever listening to us, you've been seeing a lot of things in the world like I have that are bothersome. Like they might lead us to an opposite word than unite,
Mm,
maybe fight.
yeah.
I was watching a movie the other day called The Old Guard, and one of the songs in the soundtrack was "I don't want to be a fighter, I want to be a lover." And I thought, no, I want to be a fighter, but I thought, no, I want to be a lover. As I grow older, unites, love binds, love brings together, love hopes,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean I can't speak the truth in love in situations that require a little bit of tough love. But the word unite, I thought, I wonder why Mark. Yeah, why did you? What was going on in your life, Mark? If you don't mind being a little personal, just
No.
that word.
Yeah, I'm pretty much an open book. Honestly, I will say I probably felt more now, and maybe you can. And we are both men, white men, and I mean, I would just say because this is who I am. I'm not black. I'm not Indian. I'm not Polish. Or I'm not Russian. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Palestinian. Not any of those things. But I'm a white American man, and I feel like everybody, not just me, and it's not like me calling myself being a victim, but I feel like everybody's trying to be like divided away from like or saying negative things about something other, like black people, white people, or Asian people, Chinese people, whatever, like all these things. And I feel like the world, and I've noticed and observed in this past year, and more so, people are trying to a handful, let's say some people are trying to divide us. I say, I know you're in Canada, but I would say it doesn't making this world, let's just put it on a broader spectrum, a better place by dividing people. And I think when I've felt over the years, just on a business sense with coaching, is I feel people become more united with themselves and their families are becoming more united because they're on a similar path of good health. I do feel the health of, let's say, our country or the world is where it's at today because people are divided. It's a scary. I think this year I really wanted to pick a word that scares me a bit
Yeah.
because I want to fight. Like if you come against me, like I'm going to put on the breastplate of righteousness and I'm going to wear like I'm going to defend myself, and you know that, right? I'm going to defend my family. Don't come and mess with my family because you're going to have to deal with me. Like that's it. And that's just how I've been raised and how I'm built. But I know there's a difference between good and evil. And I believe that there is evil out there that is trying to divide people more now than ever before. And I can either sit back and just be like, oh, I'll just pray to God and everything will be okay. And he's won and all that and be passive about it. Or I can actually be more in the, not necessarily vigilant, but actually more assertive in the sense now there needs to be more leaders that unite people together. That's it. I know my personal gifts are to unite people with their health and to reunite people and their families to improve their personal health, their physical health, maybe their mental, maybe even their spiritual, emotional. But my gifts come from helping people in the physical realm. Like that's it. But I see that overall, to answer your question, to unite, I believe like this is the year that we need everybody, like Canadians, Americans, Russians, Israelis, Jewish, like we need to become united, or we will even though it's American, united we stand, divided we fall. But I believe that absolutely is the truth.
Well, Mark, with your word, and I'm doing this with mine too, and this is hopefully a help to people listening. When you come to the end of your day, when you're doing some reflecting, what are some questions you could ask yourself related to your word as you think through the flow of your day? The people you met, the situations you were in, the coaching calls you had. Like, I don't know what your day looks like. I mean,
Mhm.
men at work in your home. So that today may have looked differently, but what's a unifying message? You got people in and out of your house. But like,
Yeah.
what are questions or reflections you could do as the night comes to an end around that word?
Well, I think it's what you've shared with me, which I was I was actually thinking about this. My cold drive to the gym this morning is when you share, you have a good day when you start your day with God, you live your day for God, and you end your day with God. And I was thinking, how can I work my word of the year in with that? So for me, it's how can I be united with God in the morning? How can I be united with God through the day? And how can I be united with God at the end of my day? So
Yeah.
in the beginning of the day, when the sun comes up, it does come up here often, and the sun's out right now, which is beautiful. Very cold, but it's beautiful. But I was thinking, well, when I get up in the morning, when I unite my thoughts with him, it usually starts with quiet time. And I have to do my reading. I'm doing 75 hard right now. And so I have a routine, a structured routine. I'm out the door and at the gym by 6:30. So how can I unite my thoughts? I think if I can get my thoughts ready in the morning with God, then that's united. The way I see it is if I can get united with God more in my thoughts and my actions and my words, then it's going to be a good day no matter what. So during the day, how can I live my day with God? I want to be thinking about him over all other things, over my business, over my podcast, over my workers at the house, over my wife who's in Florida right now, over my kid who flew to Florida from Colorado. Those are all things that would be my thoughts, but I want his thoughts to be over those thoughts. And then at the end of the day is where I might not have gotten all of my everything I wanted to accomplish done, and it really happens quite often. I don't get everything. I'd rather end my day and not have everything I wanted to get done than to get done with my day and say, yeah, I didn't really have much on my plate to begin with, so I didn't really have to do much. Like to me, that's not the kind of life that I believe God has for. So that's kind of where I'm thinking in lines. Hope that answers your question.
No, and I think, this isn't a question, and I do the same with me. I can tell after I've had a phone call with one of my adult kids or with my wife, was that a fountain-like conversation or was that a draining conversation? Not for me, but for them. Like the way I asked the question, did I express a fountain-like thought, which would be infilling for them? Like, wow, thanks, Dad. I needed that lift. Or was it more of a did I create more worry? My draining comment can actually be draining. And I think of that scripture where Jesus says, "The good man out of the good treasure of his heart brings forth what is good. The evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth what is evil." In another place, he says, "You'll be justified by every word that comes out of your mouth." So that's where your word is important. Like you'll be justified before God by every word. I tell you, on the day of judgment, men will render account for every careless word they utter. On the day of judgment, I have no idea what he meant when he said that, but it scares the hell out of me.
Mhm.
Day of judgment, men will render account for every careless word they utter. So I think of, when you're sitting with your wife or with your kids or all four of you, what can I do to bring unity to this meeting or to this meal? Like the simple act, one of the things Vince has introduced to our family, which has come out of his own counseling, which is really neat. When we hold hands at dinner, we did it again 2 days ago. The idea is, okay, we got to get the energy field working here. Let's all make eye contact with each other. Like, and so his kids are going, no, no, look at me. Feel it in your finger. And then you just say your grace of prayer. But it's rather than, okay, bless the grub, that we're about to eat. Like it's actually something symbolic of a unifying moment. Like even if it's just for a moment, I still feel the energy of that from 2 days ago, 2 nights ago. There was 10 of us, and it was one of the kids who says, "Okay, energy field time." Sounds a little new agey, but it actually was a Christian prayer, and the difference was we broke the tradition of just saying a prayer that nobody's listening to. Instead, we made eye contact, which
Yeah,
was
I mean, it's what I love is that brings unity. But I love that you guys discovered that, or Vince did for your family, and that you guys are welcomed in. And it's again, what did you have to do for that to happen? You had to be welcoming it in. It's no different than like the faith journey, right? Like because like the crazy thing for me is I don't know how people live in this world without faith. Like I really don't understand. I mean, I do because I lived for 30 years of my life for the most part understanding who God was, but not really understanding like how good he is and what he can really do. And I still don't really get all that he can do. And I definitely have questions and question his motives or his thoughts or what he, I have all those things, which is a good thing. And I don't have to have all the answers. But I do think it's pretty amazing that there's so many people that still yet to know how good it can be to have that in really on your side, like there by your side for every single thing that you do in your life, like everything. And because I honestly don't know, like with how the world is and the changes and the all the craziness, the stuff that I talk about on the show. Well, not so much on the show, more just in general and in my posts and things that I don't understand how people go through life, or even now more, I would be chasing down a God if there was. Hey, if there's a God, please be with me now because it's kind of things are crazy. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful not only that I felt his presence chasing me down, probably in my late 30s, early, late 30s. And that was a show prior where I was talking about with Dave, Pastor Dave, in our last episode, and how I came to discover my faith on a men's trip to Costa Rica, which is pretty amazing. That turned into really like a life-changing trip for myself. But I had to be welcome. I had to actually take action. I had to go on this trip. I had to step out of my comfort zone and be around a bunch of guys and do a Bible study for the first time. And I've never done that. Never knew how to pray. One thing I love about prayer, and maybe if you are, regardless if you're listening now and where you're at in your spiritual, the best thing I can share with you about prayer, and even if you maybe don't even know what your faith journey is like, the good news is if you are open to God, he already knows what you're going to say to him before you say it. So no matter what you say and how you say your prayers, he already knows your thoughts. He still wants you to talk to him about your thoughts, but he's going to tell you that he's going to let you know. Well, I don't know if he'll let you know because he hasn't let me know yet, but I do believe that he knows your thoughts before you even speak them, which makes me more aware of how important it is to be mindful of our thoughts. Yeah. Like, whether it's a word of the year or how you wake up in the morning, how you treat others, right? Deposits, or you're withdrawing from your relationships with family members and things like that. I love the deposit and withdrawals. And it's so true because the careless words that we say, and I know you shared this with me, but careless words, stab like a sword. Or I think that's partly what they've said. We don't have a problem talking, but I love it. You shared weight, the weight. Why am I talking?
There's a good word. That's a good word.
That's a very good word. Why am I talking? And you know what? What's interesting is I've been in this house by myself since we've moved in. My wife's taking care of her mom in Florida right now, and I've had a lot of time to my thoughts. The 12-hour walk, a lot of time to my thoughts where I didn't have to speak. In fact, I did well, except for going to the gas station for a cup of coffee because it's really cold out. 12 hours, 11 hours, and probably 55 minutes of it, I didn't speak. And gosh, you want to challenge yourself with your thoughts? Go for a 12-hour walk. It's a game changer. I've done it 4 times now, which is hoping and praying to do one. That's the next episode. So you guys, I'm giving you a little insight to our next episode, which I'm going to share my experience on my 12-hour walk. But I'll tell you, let's just wrap this up. Luch, I'm so thankful that you shared your experience with a word of the year. And it's helped me. And this year, I'm really excited and looking forward to my word. I know you are for your word fountain. And I know the students that you actually got in to share about just a little bit deeper dive on how to go about picking a word and all that stuff. But for you guys listening, I really highly recommend, and you can reach out to me. And honestly, Luch, what's the best way if somebody that's listening wants to reach out to you? They can reach out to me to contact you because you do coaching and you can learn more about what you do. And
absolutely, yeah, through Mark. I was just going to say, Mark, for people who are like your age and my age with kids, I just
one word for kids.
And I bought this for my grandkids. One word for kids, but look at the back. It's a really neat story. But notice, can you read the subtext out loud?
A great way to have your best year ever.
I was going to say, what's the point of the best word of the year? To have your best year. Yeah. And look on the back, what they did at the back. They did the thing you did, like the mind dump.
Yeah.
Like, what can be your word? And there's a whole array of words. Of course, this whole thing has got some great graphics. Look at this. It's so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
The thing is, water the concept that you want to grow in you. Water it. Pour water on it, not gas. don't burn. Like, I learned a thought years ago, 40 years ago, was from Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, which to me was a diabolical book. It was all about becoming wealthy, which is fine. But the underlying line in that book, which was redemptive, was they looked at all these people who became rich. And the one line that characterized them was this, and this applies to the word of the year. Today's obsessions become tomorrow's realities. That's worth memorizing. Today's obsessions become tomorrow's realities. And I don't know why, but when I was in my mid-20s, when I heard that, I got locked in on focus on people, investing my life in people. And then I got Christianity, and then I realized there's a specific way I can invest in people, a concrete way that's like connected to Jesus Christ. And so the point I'm making is that became an obsession, and the obsession also became the obsession to have a great marriage, not a perfect marriage, but as great a marriage as I could make it. Then it became an obsession to have a decent family, like a family that works. And so today's obsessions, today's words, let's put it this way, today's word becomes tomorrow's reality. If Mark is truly and Luch is truly focused on being a fountain 2024 and being a unifier 2024, that will become a reality. And the thing is, your words multiply. Like my word from last year, I'm still using it. My word from 5 years ago, hero, which a carpenter, one of my clients was a carpenter, and he made me a whole plaque when I told him what my word was on what a hero is. Like I gave him the words and he made that for me. Like your words don't go away. They become part of you. That's the whole point, to be a better you, a better character. Your word is designed to make you look more like Jesus Christ. At the end of the day, that's my final pitch.
No, I love it. And I love that today's obsessions become tomorrow's reality. What I love about it is people think sometimes obsession on a negative, almost a negative way. But what I love is that it just puts you in such determined focus.
Yeah.
And when you're in such determined focus, it doesn't even have to be on one thing. But when you're such determined in your focus, then all the distractions from the things that are going to try to take you away from the things that you cherish and you value, your family, your spouse, your children, those type of things. It's so true. And I think that's a great place to leave it. It was really great. And I appreciate you guys for listening. First off, thank you so much for watching us, taking the time. Appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the episode, and really the easiest thing to do is to support the podcast by just subscribing, maybe share it with your friends. Maybe try a year. I'd love to hear if you have a word of the year and you're thinking about it. I'd love to for you to share it with me and give me your thoughts, maybe why. We can, even if you have questions, reach out. Maybe I'll answer that as far as the word of the year, or you're stuck on trying to find one. Reach out to me and I can actually get you contact information for Luch. I know you're on some social media as well. Luciano Del Monte. Yeah. Facebook. Yep. And to stay up to date with the Brave Today show, get all behind the scenes content, all that kind of stuff, you can follow me. We have some new things coming and I'm really excited to share with you. We are building our own community, and that's something that's going to be coming probably within the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout. You want more info, you can reach out to us and find out. And other than that, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Luch, for being on the show. And you guys have a blessed day. Take care. See ya.
See ya.